Good evening. Thank you for joining us here at Hispanic Republicans of Texas for our Meet the Candidates series. My name is Irene Armendariz-Jackson. Today, we're honored to have Irene Armendariz-Jackson, congressional candidate for District 16 here in Texas. Ms. Armendariz-Jackson, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted and honored to put a face on all these names.
Excellent, excellent. We're very happy to have you. Before we begin, I would like for you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little about yourself and your district that you hope to represent.
Sure. My name is, like you said, Irene Armendariz-Jackson. I'm a native of El Paso. I was born to Mexican immigrant parents, Ernesto y Graciela Armendariz. My entire life, I've lived on the border. So I understand both sides of the border and the fallacies of what the message has been throughout all my life about what the border stands for and what Hispanics here in El Paso stand for. And one of the things that just breaks my heart for my district is a lack of opportunity for progress. If you're not in the medical field or in a government job, you pretty much don't have a good opportunity to make a good income here in El Paso. And I think we've been passed over for too many years. And that's one of the main reasons that I'm running, but it's not the main reason. But I'm the middle child of 4 children. I'm the second oldest. And I'm the only girl left here in El Paso. My sisters, unfortunately, because of a lack of opportunity of work for their husbands, they had to move away. And my brother's still here, but girls are more attached to their parents. So I'm the one that watches out for them. I'm very blessed to be married to my wonderful husband, Bill. We're going on 28 years in November. He is a Border Patrol agent here in El Paso. And part of the story of where I got involved, it has a lot to do with him also, where we've been, where he has been, and how God actually called me into politics. We have 3 beautiful daughters. Our oldest is Allison, and she lives in Omaha, Nebraska. She's married with 4 babies. We have a middle child that is actually going through her graduate degree at Pepperdine University. That's a miracle of the Lord, because those kind of things don't happen to us. And then we have a 14-year-old, como decimos en español, el pilón. And so she's still, of course, here with us. And like I said before, we have 4 beautiful grandbabies. We are blessed with our son-in-law, and just trying to make a difference, not only in El Paso, but in Texas and the nation.
Excellent, excellent. Well, before we get into questions, it's hard to avoid current events. They sometimes overwhelm
Yes.
planned. And today's a very sad day, as you know, we've been tragedy. Being in El Paso, having Fort Bliss in the district that you hope to represent, what is the feeling down there right now with what's going on?
I think we have, like everywhere else in the nation, we have the 2 factions. And then you have a few that are kind of in the middle, where there's people that are absolutely just tired of foreign people coming into our base. And then especially when you're in a district where the median income is only 24,000 for $20,000 for a medium income for a single person, and 42,000 for a family. That means everybody in the family is working. That's we have a very high level of poverty. So to keep bringing people in and totally disregarding the needs of the district, the people that are actually paying taxes and the voters, is very disheartening. And then you have very few, I would say, that are just like, ay, pobrecitos, bring them in. People are getting very fed up. They're very fed up of the message of the left. That's just, we just can't seem to get a break. Our representative is constantly either advocating for illegals or now for the Afghans that are here. Apparently, she did a press conference yesterday, and apparently we have 1,200 Afghans in Fort Bliss, and we still have the unaccompanied minors.
Sure, that's going on at the same time. So you're on the ground in El Paso. Tell us a little bit about because you've talked about that, about the border crisis. What is it you're seeing there that you're not seeing here?
Well, what we see here is, unfortunately, on both sides of the aisle, they constantly talk about how Paso doesn't have a border crisis. We have had this crisis for years already. And this is even before Trump. For those of us that live on the border, it's almost like life, that's normal. Illegal people coming and underbidding jobs and taking them from Americans. My own father had to leave, even though he's a Mexican immigrant that moved here legally because he worked in construction. Illegals would come and underbid his jobs. So a lot of times he was gone for months, leaving my mom with 4 kids and trying to just make a living, because what the jobs we're paying here in El Paso were so devalued, he couldn't put food on the table. So the last time my dad left, I was 19, and I remember him calling. After that he became disabled. He messed up his back. But I remember him calling, and as a 19-year-old, I should have known better that he was doing what he needed to do to provide for the family. But I didn't even want to talk to him. I was so angry that he was gone. But it wasn't his fault. It's just the circumstances, and it's a cycle here in El Paso. The labor is so devalued that even the construction jobs that are here are very poorly paid. And so here we have a very few that are very wealthy, and then the rest of the people that are struggling.
Well, talking about the local economy, and many times education is the way out of poverty. It's the greatest social program in a way, because you educate, you teach someone how to do a skill or college.
Right.
So tell us about El Paso. I know you have the El Paso Community College, you have the UT El Paso.
UTEP, yeah.
What do you see federally as far as policy that could help in getting the right skills to help the people of El Paso better their situation economically?
Well, see, UTEP, University of Texas at El Paso, is a top-notch university for engineering, yet there's no engineering jobs here. We tell our kids, go to college exactly for what you're saying, so you can have a better life, provide a better life for your kids. And like I mentioned before, my 2 sisters are no longer in El Paso, specifically because of the situation. My brother-in-law graduated from NMSU, which is 45 minutes away from El Paso in Las Cruces, as a mechanical engineer. And when he graduated with his bachelor's, he couldn't get a job, not one job. And so he said, well, let me finish my master's. A professor gave him a job as a teacher's assistant. At that time was when my sister and him got married. They were living on $1,000 a month. And that's about 23 years ago. And so even then, $1,000 a month was very little. And so he finished his master's degree, hoping that he would be able to get a job. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. He had 3 job offers, one in Wisconsin, one in Detroit, and one in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Very Mexican family. What job do you think he took? The one in Albuquerque, because it put him closest to home, where they still reside. He works as a mechanical engineer for Intel, and in Rio Rancho, which is a suburb of Albuquerque. My sister, who married a Mexican immigrant, and what happens here, because I grew up going to church in Juarez, in La Primera Iglesia Bautista de Ciudad Juarez, there's a lot of marriages that come from the church, even though there's a lot of people from El Paso that commute to the church. And so what they do is, like my sister, they got married by the courts a year before, and waited on the process until he got his legal residency. And then they got married by the church and lived together. They continued to date, even though they were married, by the courts in Mexico, in the United States. Right. But still, that's how the process is when you want to do it legally. He's an engineer in Mexico, and because he wanted to work and support his family once they started a family, he joined the army. And in his first tour in Iraq, he actually received his citizenship. Excellent. And they do, there's a process, but you do have to be a legal resident in order to join the military. And he did it that way. And of course, they don't live here right now. They're stationed in Washington State, in Fort Lewis. And I would love to have my sisters here, but unfortunately, because of the economic situation in El Paso, it separates families.
Sure. How would you contrast your legislative philosophy to that of the incumbent, Ms. Veronica Escobar?
Well, I'm for life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for everyone, not just the top 10%. And that makes a big difference, because when you advocate for la raza, el pueblo, the masses, that's when you actually have a greater impact. Not only do I want better jobs as far as corporate America coming to El Paso, I also want to bring back the manufacturing industry. Many of us here in El Paso, our tias, our tios, our friends, parents, we grew up with them working at places like Wrangler and Farah, and just the different textiles that there was at that time before NAFTA. And then when NAFTA came to be, unfortunately, it killed all that. My aunts that worked in the manufacturing industry during that time are still living off their retirement. And this is vital, because these jobs are mainly for immigrants, legal immigrants that don't dominate the English language. It gives them an opportunity to provide a good economic life for their family with benefits and retirement. So I want to make sure that after the United States, Canada, Mexico, Canada agreement, the MCA back in two Julys ago, I thought we were going to get a bunch of manufacturers here in El Paso. Unfortunately, because the incumbent is too busy advocating for illegal immigration, and now Afghans, we get lost in translation and we fall through the cracks. And for those immigrants that are moving to the United States, especially here in El Paso, legally, there's no job.
I was going to ask you about that. You've already mentioned it, about we're 1 year into the new agreement after NAFTA, and I want to see from the ground what you see in El Paso being such an important trade destination. I mean, in the United States and the world.
It is. There's nothing. We don't have anything brand new here. Nothing. And it's very sad, because I know a lot of the people that I encounter, the moms, their heart breaks when their kids have to leave. There's those that want to leave, like my daughter, she wanted to leave. But for those that wanted to stay, to have to leave, that's heartbreaking. My sister would actually say, if they offered him half the salary that they're offering him at Intel, we would stay. And every time we'd go visit her, as we left, she would always cry. Not anymore. She got used to it. It's life is over there. But unfortunately, we're tearing families apart. And I don't see one single Democrat advocating for keeping families together.
Good point. So how do you bring the jobs back? What is it El Paso can do? At what level is it? At high school? Where could the skills be learned for the jobs of El Paso? Or are the jobs just not there, and how do you bring them?
Well, you make them an offer that they can't refuse. People say that El Paso, our terrain is ugly. Well, living here in El Paso, the number one thing that we have is the people. The people are a great asset. We're friendly. 83% of the population is Hispanic. So we come with a very Mexican culture. My first language is Spanish. I dominated Spanish before I ever learned English, until I went to school. I know about El Chapulín Colorado and Cantinflas. I didn't know about, Andy Griffith. That's just not what was in my home. But that's a great asset. The number two thing that we have here in El Paso is, of course, the weather. We can plan outdoor activities almost year round, even in the winter. It's not hot, it gets cold, you're going to have to layer up. But we have two great assets here. But you basically make them an offer that is an offer that they just be stupid to refuse. You're going to have to cut on a lot of things at the beginning, but eventually we need property tax relief. And how do you do that? Is you bring the big corporations, and those big corporations, after the 10 years or 15 years of no taxes, that, the breaks that you've given them for bringing them in, then eventually they finish and then they start subsidizing the property taxes. But right now, I think El Paso has been a social experiment for too many years. And unfortunately, we've allowed it. We've allowed it. And so, but no more, no more. And so now we have to push very hard to make sure that we fulfill whatever promises we make to the public, that we're able to fulfill them.
That's great. It sounds like you're not going to let El Paso be ignored anymore. Is that right?
Exactly. That's what the message I always say outside of El Paso, and to every Texan, Governor Abbott, Attorney General Paxton, El Paso is in Texas and we will not be ignored anymore.
Great. And I agree with you. There's greater competitive advantage to people living on the border, not just the language, but the bicultural. That could just be exploded into trade, into business, if the right
Of course. Well, I remember before NAFTA, they would actually cut and assemble here in El Paso. I'm sorry, cut and assemble in Juarez, and they would store here in El Paso because real estate was cheaper here in El Paso than it was in Ciudad Juarez. So everybody benefited. Because I grew up going to church in Juarez, I remember we would go to these youth conventions and we'd ask the people that worked in Juarez, in the maquiladoras, here, are you going to ask for permission? Well, yeah, but if they don't give it to me, that's okay. I'll quit. When I come back, I'll get another job. So, I mean, jobs were thriving and at that time, and I want to see that again. Any company would benefit from having that, that of course is into trade, in the trade industry, would benefit from being in El Paso. The quick access to the border, you can't beat that. Even when gas prices go up, you just have them a hop and a skip away.
Unfortunately, a lot of what we see on the border with problems with security and on the Mexican side, the days of going freely back and forth like we did when we were kids are kind of gone. What can be done on the United States side, or as a Congress, as someone representing the border, to draw attention or just to bring back the days of, where we can go calmly to Mexico? Is there anything we can do, or is it completely out of our hands?
No, I don't think so. Well, my parents still go. My parents still go to church in Juarez, actually, and they go to they're very mission oriented. So they go to a mission in Samalayuca, which is about an hour from downtown Juarez. I believe in diplomacy by force at any level. And I believe that if the government is not taking control of the cartels, and I mean, let's be realistic. How long has the corruption operated in Mexico? We all know that. Before even the extreme violence began, I had 2 cousins disappear. They never found them. Wow. And so I understand that even before that, what happened with everything that has happened with the violence and of course the drug cartels going to war, is that we've had this boiling pot per se. And all of a sudden, somebody turned the heat up and it's spilling over. And so it's everywhere. But if we don't play with a strong arm against, work with Mexico, but definitely with a strong arm, we will never accomplish anything. And the only language it seems like the world speaks is money. You don't get a hold of this, then we're taking any aid away. And that's the only language they speak. So I believe in foreign aid because that's the strong arm that we need to use.
Excellent. Now, a lot of times they blame us that our weapons are going over there, but do you feel that sometimes this is brought up just as a way of hurting our Second Amendment rights, or how do you feel?
Well, let me tell you. So first of all, the only one that I know that took weapons back to Mexico was Holder under Fast and Furious. And right. I do believe that when we get the House back, including Holder and Obama, there's going to be a lot of heads that are going to roll. There's a lot of people that need to go to prison and pay for the crimes that they have committed. But we went to Cancun 6 years ago, and I remember there was a lot of seaweed. And I don't know what happened. The thing is, there was a lot of seaweed. Mm-hmm. I was in the elevator, and of course, soy morena, I'm brown. I'm indigenous looking, so I fit in pretty good. So I was in the elevator, and I'm like telling this lady in Spanish, it's, man, there's a lot of seaweed. And she said, it's the fault of the United States. And they sprayed so much fertilizer in Florida, and now it came all the way to Cancun. And I said, that's amazing. You all blame the United States for everything bad, but I don't hear you guys complaining about our dollars. And she was taken back because, she was like, I didn't look like an American, I guess. But, those are the kind of conversations in real time that we don't have. Enough. Stop blaming us. You don't like it. I don't care. The first opportunity they get, they're coming over here. There's actually a hymn that is very common in the Baptist hymnals. And it's One Day I Will Cross the River. And that's they joke about how that's the theme hymn of all the pastors on the border, that one day they'll cross the river to be on this side.
Very good, very good.
I mean, I can get away with saying stuff like this because it's the truth. I grew up here in El Paso. I have a lot of family in Mexico, and believe me, if they could come, they'd be here in a heartbeat.
Sure. Well, you have a great message. Obviously, we love your message.
Thank you.
The question is, how do we reach all Hispanics with this message? It's a great message. It's an inclusive message. Our message is always about bettering yourself, better life, the American dream, which everyone aspires to. But how do we reach all people in your district? A lot of times in some of the border cities, I'm also from a border city, but a different one, being a Democrat is more of a power thing than an ideological thing. I don't know how it is in El Paso, but how do you break through that and get that message out?
It's almost like a religion. Being a Democrat in the border cities is like a religion, soy demócrata. I get people that call me and can't stand the incumbent and voted for me in 2020 and are going to vote for me again. And pero soy demócrata. Ándele pues, sea demócrata. We'll win them over. We don't have time for that. Little by little, they're seeing the difference in the ideologies. But one of the things that I believe is, first of all, we're almost 40% of the population in Texas. Why isn't the Republican Party focusing on Hispanics? Are we not exaggerated enough? Are we not loud enough? What's going on? The Hispanic population is already conservative. But then you have the elitists that completely ignore us. And until either we gain their support, or we just break through on our own, we unite like we're doing now and saying no more. And you're wrong, and you're wrong. And I don't care that you're a Republican, you're wrong. That's how we're going to win. But a lot of it has to do with getting the message on Spanish speaking channels, ahí en medio de las telenovelas con las abuelitas, and showing them that I'm Morena and I'm a Republican because I'm pro-life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I want you and your children and your grandchildren to have every opportunity this country has to offer. And so I think it's a lot of the Republican control on the top also that I almost feel sometimes that the border cities have been sold out. It's like you can't have all the inner cities, but you can have all the border, because it doesn't make sense to me that the entire border is very conservative by nature. By nature, we're conservative, and they're voting Democrat. I started with Bush's son, especially in the pro-life. It didn't make sense to me that people would vote Democrat even though they would say they were pro-life. And I started talking to my parents, and I started talking to my sisters, and I started looking into the platforms, and then I started voting Republican. And so unfortunately, my brother still votes Democrat. He probably voted for the incumbent instead of me. But that's okay. I love him. He's my brother. But that's the reality of it. I think the left has done a very good job to use explosive words like racist, like suppressing, and we haven't. It's like we want to play nice and not offend anybody, but I don't think we need to. We can speak the truth boldly and use some of their tactics, and I think we can win them over. But there's two things that win elections: money and hard work. And if I learned a lesson in 2020 is that I need to go after the money. And I started fundraising in May, and it's been going very well.
Good to hear. Good to hear. That's smart.
Yes.
What about voter integrity? In other parts of the border, we have something called politiqueras, which basically they tell you how much they want for how many votes and all this. Does that happen also in El Paso, or is that just a Valley thing?
Well, no, I think it does. As a matter of fact, I get asked to meet with different people that have run for office on both sides. And I was speaking because the cheating affects both sides.
Sure.
It doesn't just affect the Republicans. It affects those that are new to the Democrat Party or running independent. It affects them too, because then you have the mafias, and that's what I call them. You know, Beto and Veronica, they're a mafia. They operate like a mafia. And so, and I'm pretty sure they have a lot of cartel money. So I was this gentleman that was running for sheriff, I believe, he said that he was actually approached, and I said, if you $5,000 buys you 3,000 votes. So I'm sure it does happen. Maybe I ooze integrity that nobody offered it to me. Or maybe they just thought I didn't have the money. I don't know. But offered me to buy votes on a lot of doors, and that's exactly what we're going to do again.
Good hard work. Well, you might get offered later, but we'll see. Oh, good. Well, is there any closing remarks you'd like for us to emphasize about your district, or about the United States in general, that you want us to know about you and your background and why you're going to be so strong for this?
Well, I believe there's a black and white. I don't believe there's a middle ground. I believe you need to choose a side at this point in history. I do see a lot of the same traits that happened, what actually led to the revolution and the forming of the United States. I see a lot of them. The taxation is just off the charts here in El Paso. We've increased 45% on our property taxes in the last 10 years. Last week they had El Paso Independent School District had a board meeting. Of course, they imposed the mask mandates, but they also voted to increase our property taxes again. So when does this stop? And people are just tired of it. And I believe that we just need to make strong arguments, stand for what is right. I don't want to unite with everybody. If you're on the wrong side of the aisle, I don't even want to go have lunch with you. And that's biblically. The Bible says with these, don't even eat. I believe that I believe in immigration, but I believe in legal immigration. Why? Because illegal immigration harms everybody, including the illegal immigrant. And if you immigrate to the United States, we want to make sure that you can take advantage of every opportunity the United States has to offer. And if you're being enslaved, and that's exactly what the Democrats want, they want to enslave you, then you will never progress. You'll always be scared. You know, I told you about my sister living in Albuquerque. One night, they used to go to a very Hispanic church, a lot of illegals in that church. But they don't go there anymore. The Lord called them to form their own church. But one of the things that, one of the situations that happened is there was this illegal family, a dad, a mom, and a son. And my sister told me afterwards the whole story. And she said that one night, they used to live in a trailer park. And one night, the gang that ruled that trailer park was wreaking havoc, was beating up on the men, ravaging the women, hitting the kids around. And all night, the dad, the mom, and the son held to each other and prayed that nothing would happen to them. And they didn't call the police because they were illegally here. Mm-hmm. This is what the Democrat agenda does. It victimizes people over and over and over again. And for the ones that come here illegally that are pouring in through our borders, don't tell me you don't have money, because you paid that coyote at least $3,000. So we gotta call what's wrong, wrong, and what's right, right. If you're my cousin and you want to live in the United States, you better believe that I'm going to demand that you come here legally, because this is our home. This is our nation. This is the inheritance that we're going to leave our children. And my parents work hard for it. We work hard for it. And I'll be doggone if there's going to be a group of people that are just going to come and take it away. And that's how I see it. You got to choose a side. And in Congress, you got to choose a side, and do not succumb to threats and to bribes. And we just have too much corruption on both sides. I mean, why aren't the Republicans speaking out against the men that are still in jail from January the 6th in solitary confinement? We just found out one of them lost his eye. Where's the outcry? They're Americans. And my number one job is my home, but my number one job as a congressman would be to advocate for my home, which is America, and my family, which are Americans.
Very good. Ms. Irene Armendariz-Jackson, a voice that will demand to be heard. We wish you the best. Thank you for sharing some time with us and letting our audience get to meet you, to know you. It's important that they see you in a nice long discussion, because you really get a more sense of the candidate. And thank you for coming on with us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. God bless you.